All right, so this is visible and this is all right. So here we go live with the chapter 5 part B, है ना, of this one. ठीक है, so this is NISM research analyst exam chapter B that we are trying and record. ठीक है, हाँ रिकॉल है ना, ठीक है, चलिए. सो जो पार्ट बच गया वो इकोनॉमिक एनालिसिस वाला है. इसमें वी वर डिस्कसिंग अबाउट माइक्रो. आपने थोड़ा बहुत पार्ट ए में देख लिया है. वी आर ऑल्सो डिस्कसिंग माइक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स हियर की इकोनॉमिक वेरिएबल्स क्या है, फिजिकल एंड मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी क्या है. ये सबसे मेरा फेवरेट टॉपिक है. इकोनॉमिक साइकिल्स मैं अभी भी पढ़ा रहा था जस्ट इन द प्रीवियस लेक्चर्स. विल कनेक्ट द डॉट्स. रोल इन फंडामेंटल एनालिसिस क्या है एंड सोर्सेज ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन क्या है, ये जरा सा देख लीजिए, है ना. फिर उसको बंद ही कर दीजिए, इससे लॉन्ग था. ठीक है. All right, so let's go to the move to the next. So what are the learning objectives for from chapter 5 part B? माइक्रो वर्सेस मैक्रो क्या है, इकोनॉमिक वेरिएबल्स क्या है, डेटा सोर्सेज क्या है, एनालिस्ट का लेंस लगाइए और ट्रेंड टाइप लगाइए. ठीक है, ये सब ज्ञान है. आगे बढ़ते हैं. सो आई विल एक्सप्लेन. सो व्हाट इज माइक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स? माइक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स फोकसेस ऑन स्टडी ऑफ लार्जली कंज्यूमर डिमांड दैट ड्राइव्स द प्राइसेस एंड प्रोडक्शन लेवल्स. प्रोडक्शन लेवल्स मतलब क्या हो गया बताइए. तो ये डिमांड है, तो प्रोडक्शन लेवल का मतलब क्या है? तो इट इज अ स्टडी ऑफ डिमांड एंड सप्लाई, है ना. और जैसा कि हमने बहुत ब्यूटीफुली आर्ग्यू किया कि ग्राफ ऐसे होना चाहिए कि ग्राफ वैसे होना और ये जिंदगी भर याद रहेगा, यू विल नॉट फॉरगेट. और हमने हमने ये भी जो है थोड़ा, उनको कौन थे भाई साहब जिन्होंने निकाला था, अल्फ्रेड मार्शल को क्वेश्चन भी कर दिया. और ये भी हमने देखा कि अल्फ्रेड मार्शल ने कन्वेंशन, मैथमेटिकल कन्वेंशन जो एग्जिस्टिंग, द एग्जिस्टिंग मैथमेटिकल कन्वेंशन विच वाज देयर, ही ब्रोक इट, है ना. he sidestepped the mathematical convention and adopted his own scale, which is the dependent variable being on x-axis that we have seen in the previous lecture, and we have discussed in detail, and we realized that Alfred Marshall was a unique guy, है ना. ठीक है. So the microeconomics also explains the theory of the firm. Why does it explain the theory of the firm? Why does it say so that it explains the theory of the firm? Because it is exactly. So you're not discussing the theory of the nation. You are not looking at the industry. You are not looking at the summation of the firms or the firms as a collective unit. You are looking at the theory of the firm. समझ गए आप? Then it also shows how individuals, decide, or how their decisions are shaped versus overall supply and demand. So basically supply and demand का game. Or supply and what happens because of supply and demand? When supply and demand interact, what happens because of that? And that leads to what? Equilibrium of what? Equilibrium in what? This is not the corporate strategy class, the customer satisfaction and all. Not a marketing. It is equilibrium of, exactly, this is price we are talking about. And it explains how goods and services get distributed among participants. This is important. How goods and services get distributed among participants, and that is a function of demand and supply. Where is the demand thing here? And also a function of equilibrium. समझ गए ना? So it is all about demand and supply is what we understand. So micro is all about demand and supply. It's about individual. It's about a single firm. Here the macroeconomics covers, it's a big picture that we understand. It covers the GDP, the unemployment, the price levels, the inflation, the savings, and ये जितने भी इकोनॉमिक कैलेंडर आप देखते हो ना, मैक्रो लेवल्स, इकोनॉमिक कैलेंडर. थिंक ऑफ द इकोनॉमिक कैलेंडर. Have you ever been to an economic calendar? Have you seen economic calendar? Investing.com/economic calendar. Have you ever seen that? And there is a very nice book Unfortunately, it is not right here. It is in that this thing, or maybe it is with one of our students. Do read this book, The Economic Calendar. मतलब एक तो है वेबसाइट है. This is one which is there, है ना. The second is we have a very beautiful book. Flip through the pages. It is written by a guy who was a Wall Street Journal editor. He has compiled roughly a 200 page plus book on economy. Unfortunately, we have that book. It is one of the most respected books, and out of that we have made a summary, just 1 page summary of this book. So economic calendar is very important, and what you're noticing here, everything is out of that economic calendar. So whether it is GDP, now how do you remember all of this? You know, so let's start with unemployment. Unemployment leads to what? So unemployment, and you flip the coin, the other side of unemployment is correct. Do you agree? Once you have unemployment, once you have employment, for example, you guys get employed in a couple of months from now, a few, at least a quarter or 2 quarters. What will you do with the first salary that you get? Spend where? So you will, spend on consumables. One would be of the fast moving nature, the other will be of durable nature. So you start tracking retail sales. That's also part of the macroeconomics, और यहाँ कहीं ना कहीं आपको दिख जाएगा, है ना. So you start talking about IRA just coming. If it is not mentioned specifically, it is just coming. So once you get from unemployment, think of this. Your unemployment, this is a macroeconomic thing. You get employed, this is a macroeconomic thing. You go for, you purchase something. This is known as retail sales in the US and actively tracked, very, very actively tracked as an economic number, as an economic factor, macroeconomic factor. Retail sales of consumer durables. It's something which creates 5-star volatility on the markets. Go to investing.com/economic calendar. Go and identify that. Retail sales is one number which can shake your markets really vigorously. It's a 5-star. It can create 5-star volatility. So if you have to measure volatility from 1 star to 5 star, there are some macroeconomic factors which cause slight damage or volatility in the prices. There are some which can cause maximum. One of those is the core of your macroeconomics, unemployment versus employment. Then comes your retail sales. When you start buying, this is the demand and supply. This is microeconomics. When you start and everyone starts buying, then naturally the manufacturer also starts manufacturing. So you start tracking something known as purchasers price index, PPI or WPI. And at this level, you are tracking not only the consumer durable sales, but you are also tracking CPI. And CPI is of two nature. One is of the urban nature, and second is of the rural nature. So you will track rural CPI versus urban CPI. So this is very important for your Hero Motocorp. This is very important for your Yamaha FZs. This is very important for your fertilizers, pesticides, agrochemicals. This is very important for, say, a company which is selling Land Rovers, Land Cruisers, Porsches, and things like, things which sell in the urban space only. Even in a rural area, you have an urban space and you have a rural. So even in a rural area, you have a landlord who will have all the facilities, from the fridge to the costliest car to the costliest bike. So even in an urban space, you have a guy who's got money, drives Pulsar or maybe a Royal Enfield. Even in a rural area, there is a rich guy who drives a Pulsar or Yamahas or Royal Enfield, etc. So rural also sometimes portrays a urban nature. That ये थोड़ा जानना भी is essential for you to understand, because people, you think that rural means absolutely poor. No, rural is not about the level of income. It's about the consumption factors which impact here and factors. And it is important to know that during one point in time, the PPI or WPI during COVID had hit 14%. In the West, they call it Purchaser Price Index. and we call it the wholesale price index. Those are two different methodologies. Here you survey the purchasing guys, the guys who are the buyers, the purchaser, the purchase department. Here you are surveying the manufacturers as a whole. Now we are shifting to the recent announcement last month, or maybe this month itself. It is in our newspaper, one of the newspaper that I handed over to you. We are shifting from WPI to PPI. And I don't know whether you have read or not, but we have captured this, that we are shifting to PPI. That means there is a difference, but this is wholesale in nature. Listen to this. This is wholesale in nature. This is wholesale in nature. Wholesale price index hai. This is wholesale in nature. This is wholesale. This is at the retail level. Price index is studied in macroeconomics. When too many people come together, when a micro factor becomes a macro factors, then it leads to inflation. That is why inflation is not a part of microeconomics. It is a part of macroeconomics, because single person cannot shake the prices or cannot move the price. Too many people have to come together as a demand factor or as a supply factor to move this or to move. अब आप sales करने लगे, you started buying too many goods. The manufacturer is also producing. So at this level, you are tracking CPI of both nature, the urban nature, the rural nature. Now, seeing the uptick in demand, the manufacturer is also producing more. That leads to inflation on the wholesale side, which is the WPI side. Now see how my understanding has changed. I always used to think, because of the contractual nature, for example, the suppliers to Marutis, the suppliers to Bajaj, they would not change the prices immediately. So the prices here would be sticky. Inflation would be sticky in nature. Sticky means it would not move that fast. CPIs would move would faster, but WPIs would move lesser. But our study shows something else that we have also published, that WPI is more sensitive. And I was really surprised. And we are still working, trying to adapt, because my whole life, my understanding has been that CPI is less sticky. Sticky means, see, you go to the vegetable guy, the prices will immediately change. The milk prices are not allowed to change. The sugar prices are not allowed to change. To some extent, our petrol and diesel prices are international linked. If you live in the US, it is changing by the moment, maybe by the hour, maybe by the day in the US. That we don't allow, but here it changes by the day, not by the hour. To some extent, our fuel prices are sensitive now. Earlier it was completely fixed. Now it is partially fixed. So I had this understanding, I had this assumption that the CPI prices are more sensitive, because when you go to the vegetable vendor, the prices are changing every day. Today the tomato is 20 rupees, tomorrow it is selling for 40 rupees. Maybe because of inflation, because of shorts, black marketing, which is not allowed now and which is also illegal. It does not happen because the government is very strict. But maybe it jumps up to 40 rupees, 80 rupees. So I was under the assumption that CPI is more sensitive, but my findings say something else. So that I will talk in detail. But when you put people together, a lot of people put together, that is inflation. When you put a lot of factories put together, then you start tracking PPI or CPI. A sum total of the people's buying behavior reflects in the manufacturer reflects in the PPI or WPI. Sum total of the buying behavior reflects in the CPI. Hence, it is a part of the macroeconomics. ठीक है, अब आपने खरीद लिया, inflation picks up, ठीक है, and which would impact also. So you started with your salary. Salary में से there is some money gone, which is your expenditure, है ना, and also impacted by inflation. So what is left at the end of the day is savings and investment. Savings and investment not at personal this thing, but at the country level. ठीक है, तो पहला आगे आपको फिर से देख लीजिए, एम्प्लॉयमेंट है और अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट. सो स्टडी ऑफ एम्प्लॉयमेंट अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट इज मैक्रो. उसके बाद यू विल स्पेंड. व्हेन यू स्पेंड, retail sales become important. And then manufacturing at a macro level also becomes important. जब ये दोनों हो जाएगा, so this will impact the CPI, this will impact the WPI, which will now be calculated using PPI. Now they are changing is what I understand. This is what RBI has said, if my understanding is not. जब ये सब हो जाएगा, when the manufacturing has also picked up, when people are buying also, then the sum total of goods and services is known as. So you will see an uptick in the GDP also. So GDP will also start growing. When people are not buying, then manufacturers will also stop manufacturing and the GDP will also fall. So this all is covered in your macroeconomics. Okay, this is also known as economic calendar because this is released by the mostly by the central bank. All these numbers, mostly some of it comes from the MOSPI, which is Ministry of Statistics and Planning. ठीक है, मॉस्पी से आता है, कुछ ब्यूरो ऑफ लेबर से आएगा, यूएस में ब्यूरो ऑफ लेबर बोलते हैं, यहाँ पर लेबर मिनिस्ट्री बोलेंगे, ऐसा कुछ बोलते हैं, तो मॉस्पी से आएगा. मोस्टली डेटा शुड ईदर कम फ्रॉम आरबीआई और फ्रॉम हाँ मोस्टली फ्रॉम आरबीआई एंड मॉस्पी, मोस्टली डेटा यहीं से है. एंड देन इन्फ्लेशन, व्हेन यू आर स्टडीइंग इन्फ्लेशन, savings and investment is an outcome of it. कोई अलग, it's not a different thing. When money is being eaten away, you will always wonder how much you have saved versus how much you invested. ठीक है. Now macroeconomics is driven by two things. One is fiscal policy and second is monetary policy. Fiscal policy means what? The money that government spends on infrastructure development from the exchequer, from the treasury. That is known as fiscal. How much to spend on infrastructure development and all, that's fiscal policy. And monetary policy is obviously the central bank. It tries to regulate and control the supply of money. Control the supply of money. And that is why all central banks hate Bitcoin or tokens or cryptocurrencies. The larger umbrella, the larger name is the bigger umbrella, bigger the terminology is cryptocurrency. Why do they hate? Because they have no control over the supply and distribution. Neither the printing of it, neither the supply of it, and the distribution. Now that guy who's made the Bitcoin, some Japanese guy who's always in a hoodie. Look at the printed currency. Mahatma Gandhi दिखते हैं. You go to some other nation, you will go to say US, उनके डॉलर पे you will see presidents हैं, Roosevelt है, someone else. The photograph is there. But when you print, for example, cryptocurrency would not be printed, but let's hypothetically assume that crypto is to be printed. So you're a guy with a hoodie. So ये कैसा है? So that is why cryptos will never be accepted. And it's a geopolitical thing. I will not cover in today because it becomes too heavy. And NISM में geopolitics we can't teach. है ना? It's a standard thing. So that is why, because these guys control the supply of money through the monetary policy. उसको हम क्या बोलते हैं? Monetary Policy Committee बोलते हैं, है ना? And there are 6 members to it, headed by the governor. ठीक है? So the theory of unemployment, interest, and money shift, as I told you, this institute, this facility has this Keynes book somewhere here. Again, employment is about collectiveness, collective people, interest rate, and money. This is all about what the RBI is doing. Okay. So hence it is a macroeconomic thing. This is what the government would try to impact. Employment cannot be impacted by RBI. The money supply can be. So who will impact the employment? So the government, by bringing a lot of fiscal policies, Manrega, this Rega, that Rega, Manrega. So you allow more people to work and earn daily wages or more than that. So it's because of the government policies that the employment goes up or down. Okay? And this helps the government to design long run growth versus यही है ना. हाँ, तो decide the long run growth policy and understand global trade links. ठीक है. So trade links का मतलब क्या है? वो इसका मतलब क्या है? This is जो पूरी लड़ाई चल रही है ना, FTA, trade war, the Trump tariff, है ना, and so this will help you in deciding. It's a fight of balance of payment. Trump knows very well. He studied macroeconomics very well. He knows that if he corrects the balance of payment for US, he will become immortal on this planet. So his statues will be installed. So Liberty, Statue of Liberty हट जाएगी और Statue of Trump आ जाएगा if he can correct the balance of payment. So that is why India is a very good country. अभी आपने देखा, है ना, the Honorable Prime Minister is a very good guy. But these guys have been fleecing us. It's not their fault. It is our fault. Our politicians have allowed. He's blaming himself. And the tone will change as he enters the election mode. He's all bothered about the global payment that you are looking at, है ना? ठीक है, you have understood this one. So this one is all about balance of payment. Balance of payment is also part of the macroeconomics. अब आइए थोड़ा सा देख लें which are the variables to track. So one is the national income, second is savings and investments, inflation and interest rate, unemployment, FDI and FPI flows, fiscal policy, monetary policy, trade and exchange rate, है ना, and globalization. समझिए आप, and also globalization is a part of this. ठीक है, so we have ensured that it is on silent. Okay, is it clear now? So where are those topics? ठीक, चलिए so इसको एक एक करके समझ लेते हैं. ठीक है, let's understand this. जस्ट तो नेशनल इनकम क्या है, इसको आइए थोड़ा समझ लेते हैं. लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड नेशनल इनकम. जाएगा क्या नेक्स्ट पेज पे? ठीक, हाँ. तो लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड जीडीपी क्या है, जीएनपी क्या है, सब इंपॉर्टेंट है और जिंदगी भर काम आने वाला. ऐसा नहीं है कि यू वुड ओनली नीड दिस ड्यूरिंग दिस टाइम फ्रेम ना. just give me one moment. I'm just letting more light enter so that it is better now. Looks slightly better now. And also check if it is visible. थोड़ा देखिए तो नवीन, इट्स नॉट क्लियर. खड़े हो जाएंगे वहाँ पे, जस्ट फटाफट जाइए तो स्टैंड देयर. नवीन कितना खूबसूरत लगता है. मॉडल है, हाँ मॉडल है, बच्चा है मेरा. आई जस्ट सॉ धुरंधर ऐसे प्राइमरी माइनर. इज इट क्लियरर नाउ? ठीक है, चलिए तो फटाफट देख लेते हैं. सो व्हाट इज जीडीपी बताइए. व्हाट इज जीडीपी? व्हाट इज द डिफरेंस बिटवीन जीडीपी एंड जीएनपी विद इन द कंट्री? ओके, एंड दिस इज जीएनपी इज. तो इसमें एनआरआई का इनकम रेमिटेंसेस भी आ गया. ठीक है, और इसमें द पीपल ओनली विद इन, है ना, विद इन रेसिडेंट्स आ गए. ठीक है, now this is what the whole world is against. We are a country who remits the maximum, the highest amount of dollars to its own country, which is, so even NRIs staying there for 30 years in the US have been remitting a lot of money. Entire Gulf was remitting a lot of money. Indians were remitting a lot of money. So they have disturbed each of the countries from where Indians were remitting money. पहले इंडिया से यूएस से बहुत पैसा आ रहा था, so they are trying to disturb it, bother it. There was a lot of money coming from the Gulf also, तो गल्फ में भी प्रॉब्लम कर दिया. So that if you have to impact India, you will have to impact the gross national product. That means the remittance is coming outside. So they are not attacking this one. क्योंकि ये कर नहीं सकते. क्यों नहीं कर सकते? Because we are the largest economy in terms of the purchasing power parity. That means essentially the consumption. From a consumption perspective, we are the largest. We can't kill people. You can't come and kill people in this country. So people will continue to consume. But if you have to impact India, what you will do is the remittances where they are coming from. So largely दो से ही आते हैं, मिडिल ईस्ट से आते हैं और यूएस से आते हैं. तो मिडिल यूएस में भी बोला H1B, दिस लॉ दैट लॉ, $100,000, ऐसा नहीं वैसा नहीं, कुछ ही लोग आएंगे, सब कोई नहीं आएगा, आप रहोगे तो सिटीजनशिप नहीं मिलेगा. सो दे आर ट्राइंग टू शेक दिस वन. He is a master. Trump is a master of macroeconomics. He is trying to correct the balance of payment, which is skewed, which is in favor of Chinese and Indians and other nations. And that's why he says that these guys are very nice, but they have been misusing our system. And he is also attacking this part so that remittances कम हो जाएंगे, so that our GNP falls. अभी आप कभी नहीं भूलोगे what is GDP versus GNP. You'll remember for life that this is a Trump thing impacting the GNP, and this is largely impacting the remittances. So how is this calculated? How is GDP calculated? One is the product method, second is the income method, and third is the expenditure method. So what is product method? It is a sum of goods and services, output of value across agriculture, industry, and services sectors. So all the major sectors, whatever value you've created, it's a sum of it. So it's a sum of output value, whatever is coming out, final output. That's a sum of agri, industry, and services. Income method is, it's an aggregate income of employees, professionals, entrepreneurs, and investors that who are producing wealth within the country. And the third is expenditure. So whatever private consumption is there, government spending is there, and if there are any net exports minus imports, that also is added. So that is how the GDP is calculated. Because the exports are done by people who are residents. Exports are not being done by NRIs. Exports are being done by people who are resident of nation. So there are three methods to calculate. अब इनमें से सबसे सही मेथड कौन सा होगा? Which of these would be the most accurate method, by the way? अच्छा, expenditure. Why do you say so? अच्छा, ये देखिए बहुत होशियार है ना तीनों. But which of these would be more accurate? If you have to choose one, only one, then which one would you choose? If you have to choose only one, will you choose the product method, income method, or the expenditure method? बताइए. प्रोडक्ट मेथड विच इज द सम ऑफ आउटपुट वैल्यू, जितना हमने प्रोड्यूस किया वो हमने सेलेक्ट कर लिया, ठीक है. लेकिन उसे ये पता नहीं चला, वी डोंट नो वेदर वी हैव earned or not. Output you produce, but it's a profitable business venture, or whether you destroyed capital, that you don't know from this one. इसमें क्या होगा? इससे you only know the income, and here you would know the expenditure. So you can choose whatever, all answers are correct. That's why there are three methods, but I would go by this method, how much we are spending, because this decides the spending rate and the savings. Savings is also part of macroeconomics, and the savings and investment, because once you spend less than how much you want, then only you can invest. That is why they are talking about private consumption and they are talking about government. See, private consumption, when it goes down, that means the economy is sinking. When the government stops spending, when it tightens the noose on the fiscal spending, that means the economy is going down. So I would also keep a track, but you can choose anyone which you. So this is the sum of goods and services produced in terms of output. This is in terms of how much money you have made, है ना? But these are all resident guys, है ना? So this is all types of people, whether employees, professionals, entrepreneurs, investors of all sorts, and this is the expenditure method. So who's earning what? So so who's spending what? So private consumption is very important for economic growth. If you see, Uday Kotak has recently complained. He said that $80 billion is the profit of Google, and they are still raising funds. This is a statement from Uday Kotak. What is he complaining about? He is complaining about private, and he says very differently. He says that IPL matches are open. वो statement देखिए, very relevant message, and not once. He has made this statement twice over a period of 1 or 2 years. He has said that IPL matches are over, and you guys are still, it's for the corporate India to think about it. IPL matches are over, and Google, I think $80 billion of profit. Check the numbers. And they are still raising funds at that level of scale. They are very profitable. They virtually have monopoly in the search engine business. 90%. There are only few companies on the planet which control more than 90% in the product. One of those products is controlled by, the segment is, because I used to present, it is by National Stock Exchange of India, NSE. थोड़ा बहुत market share कम हुआ होगा because of the lesser, but in the in the derivative segment, they were controlling virtually more than 90%. There's only one company or two companies on the planet which controls more than 90%. 90% is, I think, Google. Beyond 90%, it was, and this was a study, official study done, and we used to teach black, maybe I don't know, because it comes up my presentations. I don't know the number one, but I know. But Google also figured in our discussions in the presentation. So Google control a lot of things. So, so when Uday Kotak is complaining, you know that he is talking, he's taking a leaf out of macroeconomics, and this is what he's talking about. He's talking about private consumption. Why are you guys not investing? Private consumption नहीं कि पूरा खा गए. You can't consume more. You will have diarrhea. Private consumption means why are you not investing? When the government is investing, why? Because capital formation will only happen when there is a savings, and capital formation will happen only when you are investing and the investment is growing. So this private consumption should lead, this is maybe at the retail level, this has to happen. Essentially, Uday Kotak, Shri Uday Kotak is complaining about this, that please invest. If you remember, there was also a very famous statement from Piyush Goyal Sahab also. He said, आपने बहुत सारे Zomato बना लिए, इसमें आप क्या टेक्नोलॉजी अपने क्रिएट कर ली? He is again complaining on this one. Where is the technology part of it? ठीक है, एक ऐप है, then you basically hired, and it's a very famous statement. बहुत उस पे सोशल मीडिया पे वायरल हुआ, because he is saying that, you know, where is the technology? Because you essentially hired laborers. वो एक जगह से आते हैं, टेक्नोलॉजी है, but where is it? That's not real technology. They are essentially talking about this part of the capital formation तब होगा जब intellectual property rights आपके पास हो. Can we go to the next? ये सब important है. Then you will not forget ना कि कौन सा टॉपिक से कौन सा ये हो गया. अभी ये देखिए. Now from national income to savings and investment, ये क्या है बताइए. So why national income statistics matter? ठीक है. So now we're talking about national income. It reveals what? It reveals your economic and welfare growth. Per capita income से क्या पता चलेगा कि आपके पास, लोगों के पास पैसा है भी कि नहीं, welfare है कि नहीं. It's a gauge of living standard. Shows the income distribution across employees, all types of categories of people or employees, professionals, employed people. Shows the distribution, and it supports the fiscal and monetary policy, because savings will lead to consumption, and then that will lead to investment. It guides us on the policy. These are all connected, and this is very important for any country. Savings, which is what you don't consume, essentially becomes savings. And when you have savings, then only you will do investment. When you do investments, then the capital formation in the country starts. If you spend all, so 1 minus expenditure rate, say you spend 30%, so expenditure percentage will give you the savings percentage, and that will lead to investment in the country, and the investment will lead to capital formation. So these are related slides. When someone says that you need to have capital formation in the country, this is what you're talking about. This is what you're talking. So when you're talking about capital formation, you are essentially talking about what money is left as savings and then invested, and then the capital formation. समझ गए आप? Is this clear? ठीक है, अब आइए. So this is what it is. This is savings and investment. So personal savings, then corporate savings, which is undistributed. This is your retained earnings. ये इंडिविजुअल का है, ये आपका पर्सनल सेविंग है, और पब्लिक सेविंग्स है जो गवर्नमेंट that saves from various institutions. This adds up to national savings, and this leads to investments, है ना? And then you invest, and then you can invest via equity, bonds, and government securities. How do you control? How do you take stake in any company? Via equity, via bonds, and via government securities. ठीक है ना? Is this clear? Yes or no? चलिए अब आते हैं inflation and interest rates. So what is inflation? Inflation is the rise of the prices, price levels. So CPI and WPI have a P in it. If you have noticed carefully, the CPI has a P in it, and WPI and also PPI. These are not related terminologies. So whether it is CPI, whether it is WPI, or whether it is PPI, the P represents the price index, and the change in the price index is known as inflation, and it erodes the purchasing power. is आपको पता ही है. There are two types of inflation. One is demand pull and the second one is cost pull. What is demand pull inflation? ये सब आपने पढ़ा हुआ already. What is demand pull? बताइए. Because of the demand, because of the high demand. So you will see that all festive season in India, the milk prices shoot up, and adulteration may be also increased. That's an outcome of the demand pull inflation. And still people want cheaper milk during festive season, which is not possible. Okay. Cost push inflation. What is cost push inflation? This is because of the challenges on the supply side. And who's the supplier? Supplier is essentially the manufacturer. So think of TSMC. When TSMC was not able to supply, so there were issues on the supply side, and this was impacting the cost. Think of other like coal shortages, LPG shortages, crude oil shortages. You just seen the prices shoot up in the market. That is why OPEC follows a cost push inflation model. When the demand shoots up, when there are challenges on the supply side, the OPEC prices, the Brent crude and the other crude oil prices shoot up because there are issues on the supply side. This covers the supply side issues, and this covers the demand side issues of the demand related price increase. ठीक है ना? WPI does at the wholesale price. This does at the consumer price index. इसमें जो है largely 40 to 60% है. It is food related stuff which causes the inflation. और इसमें जो है largely manufacturing जो है 30-40% के आसपास है. Manufacturing activities or manufacturing input cause the prices to increase. ठीक है? Higher inflation will lead to higher interest rates, which will lead to saving. ठीक है? And if there are higher interest rates, then you will save. Stock market will also. नहीं, so these are inflation. People will invest in inflation related products. नहीं, usually you will see that when the inflation is high, all inflation related asset classes are doing well, and at this time stock market is doing well. When RBI or any central bank increases the interest rate, then the stock market goes. So initially high inflation will lead to high interest rates, so a lot of sectors will be performing good, and as an asset class, stock needs inflation. Then you cut the inflation, then the stock market goes. ठीक है? Then so or inflation is a double edge. So beyond a certain level, then it also impacts the borrowing cost. It also impacts the stock market. But still, a healthy inflation will take your stock market. It's also a sign of a growing economy. High interest rates or higher inflation. But बहुत ज़्यादा high नहीं हो सकता. So what is the normal? So we consider 2 to 6%. If it shoots beyond 6%, then it's an alarming thing. And we studied inflation recently for the retirement planning. So we realized that I think our inflation have been, the average in the last 30 years have been close to 6.75% average. So it will slightly overshot the normal band. What is the 2 to 6%? The normal band for any central bank in the world, they consider this as the normal, that inflation should remain in this band. If it shoots beyond 6%, it's a cause of concern for them. Then they start thinking about this. If it falls below this 2%, then they think of something known as recession. Okay, so this is, and all the central banks, I think they meet in Switzerland or something. And someone said, where has this band come from, 2 to 6%? So this thought originated in 1990s, that 2 to 6% band. But maybe people will start questioning this one. Okay, So higher inflation will lead to higher interest rates. So there will be more savings happening, है ना? Lower consumption will happen and lower investment. So when you have the interest rate is high in the country, less and less people will invest anywhere, because the FD itself, say the FD rate is 10%, and someone has got 55 crores in the account. So annually you are making 50 lakh rupees. 50 lakhs is like 4 lakh rupees in your account without doing anything. So why would you take risk? So high inflation leads to, high interest rate leads to less investments. Okay? But it's a very plain and simple statement, because inflation will also be eating your 4 lakhs. But in a high inflation environment, everyone wants to put the money in the bond. They are more comfortable. जब 10% आ ही रहे, my needs have been taken care of, so why should I invest anywhere? तो ये समझ लेते हैं unemployment rate and foreign capital flow, है ना? So what is unemployment? It's a share of eligible willing to work population that is without a job. So people who are willing to work but they have not found a job. So, मतलब there is a willingness to work, but some people do not work out of their will. So those kind of people are not considered. That's not an unemployment. That's not considered in that. Only those people who are willing to work and are available to work, they will be added. Slowdown में क्या होगा? Unemployment goes up. Expansion में unemployment falls, है ना? Beyond 6%, I think in US there will be a cause of concern. In COVID, I think we have seen 8% also, 10% also, and if some imaginary numbers like 14% also. But anything beyond 6% will be a cause of concern for any governor or the head of any central bank. Beyond 6% is, I think, is not a normal or a natural rate of employment. So there is something known as natural rate of employment. Natural से आप ऊपर चले जाओगे, तो central bank will have to start thinking, but the government will have to start thinking. So unemployment is impacted by the government, or employment or unemployment is impacted or affected by the government. So people will have to start thinking about it as a part of the monetary policy also, because directly the central bank cannot increase or affect or impact the unemployment, but they will start loosening the availability of the credit in the economy. So they will act on the monetary side of it, and the government will act on the fiscal side. But unemployment is a major indicator, and should I call it a leading indicator? Maybe yes, a leading indicator also. There are no leading indicators; they are all lagging in nature. But I think it is one of the leading indicators as far as troubles or problems in the economy is concerned. And both the fiscal committee and the monetary policy committee is actively tracking the unemployment rate. Anything beyond 6%, it's a cause of, it's like an early warning signal. It's like a red alert. You know, it's a fire in the house. What is FDI versus what is FBI? FPI? What is foreign direct investment and what is FP and foreign portfolio investment? बताइए. What is FDI? So investment in the factory, greenfield or brownfield, is known as FDI. What is greenfield? Scratch say you build a factory, it's greenfield. The field was green and then you build it. Brownfield means already the factory was there and then you have taken over and you expanded. So maybe via subsidiary route or JV route or associate route, or you take over लॉक स्टॉक एंड बैरल बोलते हैं एक्विजिशन, और लॉक स्टॉक एंड बैरल जो जैसा था खरीद लिया आपने, ठीक है, और उसको आपने खरीद लिया तो वो हो गया एक्विजिशन के माध्यम से. सो दैट ऑल्सो इज कंसिडर्ड एज अ ब्राउन फील्ड. लेकिन ग्रीन फील्ड में आप एक्चुअली यू गो एंड बिल्ड व्हाट, यू गो एंड बिल्ड द फैक्ट्री, दैट्स व्हाई इट्स कॉल्ड एज ग्रीन फील्ड. ठीक है ना, दैट इज क्लियर. और एफपीआई क्या है? व्हाट इज द डिफरेंस बिटवीन एफपीआई एंड एफआईआई? वो बताइए फटाफट. मैनेज पोर्टफोलियो. हाँ हाँ बोलिए बोलिए सर. व्हाट डू मीन बाय मैनेज पोर्टफोलियो? लेट द प्रेजेंटेशन. व्हाट इज एफपीआई? आर यू आर इन्वेस्टिंग बाय द स्टॉक मार्केट? Via stock markets, that's it. They are, हाँ वो that is FDI. FDI. FPI है
the development of the nation are for good in FPI. FPI also is equal, but FPI doesn't have major part.
FPI is essentially controls the, अब जैसे मेटा ने इन्वेस्ट किया, गूगल ने इन्वेस्ट किया, अल्फाबेट, इज इट एफडीआई और एफपीआई? गूगल ने इन्वेस्ट किया, अल्फा ने इन्वेस्ट किया, मेटा ने इन्वेस्ट किया रिलायंस में, पता है आपने 22 में उसी दिन हम प्रेजेंट कर रहे थे, तो वो क्या है?
वो FPI है.
एफडीआई है कि एफपीआई है? It is FPI. It is not FDI. They have not put their money into that plant. It is through the stock market. They have acquired stocks where? Via the exchange route. That is it. और FII को ही अब FPI बोलते हैं. So FII is known as foreign portfolio investment. So FIIs are now known as FPIs. ठीक है? Earlier they used to call it FIIs. ठीक है? So hopefully this presentation will be here. So FDI is a long term, as you can see. It is an active investor participates in the management and decision, brings jobs, technology, managerial skills, new product. But जब भी आप FDI बोलते हो, please understand, it is a direct investment into the company and it leads to job creation. But if I control the stock or buy the stocks via the stock market, then it is known as FPI. So it's a FPI, passive investment in equity bonds, no management role, known as hot money, can exit quickly, subject to caps on individual combined holding limits. ठीक है? But अभी जो these guys have come, for example, say what you call is alpha है, alphabet है या meta है. Do you think that's hot money that will exit quickly? Reliance will exit quickly. Do they have an active role in the management decision? No, I'm talking about specifically of these three companies in Reliance. Would they have investment active participation in the management decisions? They would have a board seat. They will have a representation. In fact, if you looked at the board in the last AGM when they were introduced, there's also, I think, someone from Middle East also sitting on the board. So they would have. So by that definition, because they have active role, it's a long term. They have not come as a portfolio. It's not. They're not holding. It's not a pension fund which is holding that company as an investment. So in that sense, it would be FDI. Just go and identify whether it is an FDI or FPI. These companies investing in Reliance, whether it is an FDI or also go and check. Also go and check when the news came of their investment, was it classified as an FDI or was it classified as an FI? चेक कीजिए जरा, गूगल पे भी सर्च कीजिए, आपको आंसर मिल जाएगा. $20 billion रिलायंस में इन्वेस्टमेंट हुआ, उसी दिन हमने बनाया था. वॉज इट क्लासिफाइड एज एन FDI और FPI? फटाफट चेक किए और मुझे बताइए, है ना, क्योंकि यहाँ मैनेजमेंट कंट्रोल की बात हो रही है. ये सब पोर्टफोलियो का पैसा है एंड दिस इज एक्चुअल मनी विच हैज बीन डिप्लॉयड. ठीक है, वेदर इट इज फॉर टेक्नोलॉजी और मैनेजमेंट वो अलग है, but do they have an active role? So whether the news articles exactly, है ना? That's why I changed the dialogue when I was thinking about it. When I looked at it, I realized yes, because that year we had the highest FDI in the news article. Lot of articles were presented in 2020 and all the articles said India has benefited, India is growing, India has benefited, we have received the highest FDI. So do you all agree that this news is classified as an FDI and not as an FII? So there is another layer beyond having a factory. That is what we have been taught so far, but the definitions have evolved. That it is just not the factory, having a factory. Existing factory, तो क्या factory बनाओगे आप? Where are you going to build another factory? So now the definition has evolved around. Do they impact investment decisions? And the answer is yes. And if you've seen in the Geo IPO, these guys, I mean, why was the money brought in? Because they were already preparing for this, possibly preparing for this new age companies. Jamnagar plant, I don't think much expansion has happened. It is already state of the art, world class technology. What has happened is they've brought in money for this Geo IP, where you read that 60,000 per day connections are being done and 90% of the work is complete, for which and now they want to pay off the loan $3 billion. That's why they are raising 4 billion. तो बहुत पैसा भी नहीं मांग रहे हैं. They want to pay off the debt and hence they are getting 4 billion, and $1 billion will be next time. With this they will get 6G technology. So that is an FDI and a not an FDI. समझ गए आप? आने दीजिए इसको. So let's. अब ये देखिए, fiscal policy and impact on the economy. So stable economy, what it will. So fiscal policy is what? So if it's a stable economy, what it would do? How would the fiscal policy be? Stable economy, the stance, this is called fiscal stance or fiscal policy, will be neutral. Income and expenditure are in equilibrium. No major policy change are required at this stage. When it is an expansionary stage, as we are building. Why are we building roads and bridges and tunnels? So that the economy grows. It is not for the sake of building roads. No, it is because we are in this phase of the economy. We are building an entire nation. We have lost 200 or 400 years. We are building an entire nation. So that's why we are on a fiscal spree. So we are spending more the taxes, and it is also reducing the taxes. If you've seen, GST reduced, income tax, corporate reduced. So it ties up. So we are spending more and we are taxing less. Plus we have taxed less. We have said up till 12 lakhs, no income tax, zero. That is the greatest gift that has come. Neither there was ATC, CCD, ATD, 20, what not. That all crap is gone. 12 lakh, that is monthly. If you are making 1 lakh per month, there is zero tax in this country. And 1 lakh is sufficient for one person to survive, is more than sufficient for it. So this instance, why do you think government keeps on reducing the taxes? Because of the expansionary fiscal policy. Okay? And leaving more money with citizens to spend drives growth but creates fiscal deficit. And our target has been under 3% as far as the fiscal deficit is concerned. During COVID, we have breached, and I think we have gone to 4% plus. Sometimes we are at 3.2%, sometimes we are at 3.9%. Our target deficit is 3%, but we are not able to meet our target deficit because we are on an expansionary phase. That means we spend $100. This is the expenditure, and we earn how much? Only $97 we earn, and we spend. So where does the balance 3% come from? We borrow from foreign governments and largely Japanese government. And some of the infrastructure projects we go and borrow from ADB, Asian Development Bank. Who are the founders of Asian Development Bank? The BRIC nations largely. China is there, India is there. Then we also borrow from World Bank. Which all banks we borrow from? Asian Development Bank. देख लीजिए, आप history देख लेंगे, so we history देख लेंगे. So I think China is also founding member of it. So we largely borrow from this. फिर IMF से कभी हम borrow कर लेंगे. So that is how it is financed. फिर contraction में आप क्या करोगे? You'll be spending less, you'll be taxing more, and cooling on overheated economy leads to fiscal surplus. So in a contractionary phase, okay, you'll be spending less. It is recessionary pressure. When you are contracting, when the economy is going down, when the GDP is growing quarter on quarter, then you, at one time in time you are spending more, you will stop. Government travels will stop. Government has announced no foreign travels. Travel in shared cabs and shared cars and shared buses. Why? Because we are shifting from, and that is largely triggered by an inflation. समझे आप? Where is that inflation coming from? Not a single penny of inflation we generate. All it is controlled. Whatever we generate in India is all controlled. Whatever we generate via import of oil and import of gold, that we are trying to control. There has been an inflationary overeating. So government is saying travel less, save. That is why you heard that the Honorable Prime Minister is talking about. It is essentially the speech is from a fiscal. It is a finance minister's announcement. बट क्या होगा, फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर को कितने लोग मानेंगे नहीं मानेंगे, हम विल अग्री, बट वन थिंग कमिंग फ्रॉम द लीडरशिप, then we have seen some of my trainings have gone online now. So September training 2026, which is scheduled to happen in 2026, it was scheduled to happen in Lonavala, in one of the L&D centers, one of the largest infrastructure companies in the world, in India and possibly in the world. And they have done a lot of projects in the Middle East also. They build, their engineering is like marvelous. They build all world class infrastructure development zone in India is done by that company. So I am delivering a finance lecture, but it has been now translated into or transformed into online session, all because of the leadership is talking spend less. So now you can relate, So stable economy, there is not much difference, but expansionary stage, as you can see, recession and slowdown, government will be spending more, so that you get a boost, the economy gets a boost. And it looks like that there is an inflationary overhang at $112, at $110 USD Brent crude oil plus. It is a severe dent on our economy. So there is a study, I'm forgetting it, that $1 rise beyond a certain limit shaves off some percentage of our economy. There is a study which is there. So beyond anything which is beyond 70 USD barrels, it wipes off our economy. It eats into our economy. When the dollar is 100 and plus, it will lead to, so the government will come and announce spend less, and you've seen that, so you'll never forget in your life what happened in the Iran-Israel war, and what was the statement made by the Honorable Prime Minister. You'll never forget. So this is a contractionary phase possibly, which is said from a different platform, but that is what it is. अब ये देख लीजिए, रेपो रेट, रिवर्स रेपो रेट, बैंक रेट, CRR SRR क्या, ये तो पता ही आपको. रेपो रेट क्या होता है, व्हाट इज रेपो रेट, दिस ऑल ऑफ यू नो. This is the rate at which the banks lend to the commercial scheduled banks, and this is, which of these would be higher? By a simple logic, you are the governor of India, governor of RBI. Which of these would be higher in nature? Huh? Q? Because the government has to make money out of it. Where does the 3 lakh crore come from? The surplus transfer, apart from the trading that happens. So repo rate will be more than the reverse repo. Okay? What is bank rate? This is the rate of lending to the commercial banks without collateral. Which of these, abhi aapke paas option hai between A, B and C, which of these will be the highest? The bank rate has to be higher because there is no collateral. Exactly. What is CRR? They actually have to maintain a certain percentage of the deposits as cash. If you increase the CRR, what happens? Liquidity goes up or goes down? If the CRR goes up, the liquidity goes up or goes down? If you increase the CRR, liquidity goes up or goes down within the country? The liquidity will go down because you are holding someone's cash in the banks. Cash circulation will be less. What is SLR? So whatever money the banks have to maintain at their end in terms of the cash equivalent, the gold, the G6, all the time deposit, this deposit, that deposit. This is a long formula. Look at that. Remember that formula. You should know the formula for this one. That what all is included in SLR. That this is the minimum you have to maintain. If SLR goes up, the liquidity goes down. If CRR goes up, the liquidity goes down, and vice versa. Sometimes when the central bank does not want to change, does not want to impact the liquidity via the deposit rates, then it does not touch the CRR. It only increases or decreases the repo rate. So it passes on to the consumers. So when the central bank is trying to impact the buying behavior, the demand, one is cost push, the other one is demand pull. The demand pull inflation, the demand behavior of the consumers, then it will only touch this. If it is only trying to impact it. If you impact this one, then the housing loan and all will also get impacted because you have less. This is about lending activity. Also, this will impact your larger lending activity also. You know, so sometimes you'll see that government the RBI does not touch this rate, but only increases or decreases this rate. Then you'll be wondering why the government is doing something like this. So this is largely, to my understanding, and we can do a case study on this one as to under what situations only repo rate is touched, under what situations both the CRR and SLR. This is constant, and earlier they have reduced the repo rate, but they have not touched this rate. In the whenever that happened, it happened about 6 months ago, they decreased the repo rate, but they did not touch, to my understanding, they did not touch this one. And that we have seen many times, they don't touch the deposit rates, but they touch the repo. This has an immediate impact on your credit cards, on your housing loans also. But here you are sucking the liquidity by taking away the liquidity. So banks can lend less. Here they are able to lend, but at a higher cost or a lower cost. Here they are able to, if you increase both, so you are able to lend at a higher cost plus the lesser amount of money. So it will lead to faster sucking of liquidity from the economy. Understood, no? I hope they've seen. So how do you remove the liquidity? One is the interest rate impact, and second is the liquidity impact. It's a combination of both. You increase the interest rate and you also reduce the liquidity. That will kill the inflation faster. But if you want to impact it at a slower pace, because you don't want to give a knee-jerk reaction, it's like a handbrake you don't want to pull while you are driving at 80 or 100. So you will impact only one of those, and most likely that. I think you have understood, है ना? ये आपको कहीं डिटेल में नहीं बताता कोई. करंट अकाउंट क्या है, कैपिटल अकाउंट क्या है, फाइनेंशियल अकाउंट क्या, बताइए फटाफट बताइए. व्हाट इज करंट अकाउंट? यही लड़ाई है, ट्रम्प की यही लड़ाई है. अच्छा ये बताइए, इंडिया इज करंट अकाउंट सरप्लस और कैपिटल अकाउंट सरप्लस? Which of these is surplus for India? Which of these is negative for India? Which of these is positive for China? Which of these is positive for America? बताइए. So import and export of goods and services, interest and dividend flows. ठीक है. Non-produced, non-financial assets, patents, land, capital grants. Import and export of goods, services, interest and dividend. अच्छा मान लीजिए वो छोड़ दीजिए, यूएस का छोड़ दीजिए. फर्स्ट कंपेयर इंडिया एंड चाइना. Do you think it will be positive or negative? Why? Because of you're importing more, exporting none, and most of the companies in China, they have not been successful. Mahindra has tried to invest. I think Dr. Reddy's has also tried to invest. Few companies, few pharma companies, and few automotive companies, they failed. अभी कैपिटल अकाउंट बताइए विथ क्या हो रहा है अमेरिका के साथ, बताइए. Which one? Capital will be positive, and what about current account? Check कीजिए जरा. Can you just check? US India balance of payments current account. Which one? US is negative. Why is US negative? पहले ये डिस्कस कर लेते हैं, फिर उस पे आ जाते हैं. Why is US India balance of payment, especially on the current account side of it, why is it deficit? What all do we export? What all do we import? फूड हो गया, एग्रो हो गया. इंपोर्ट क्या क्या आप करते हो? व्हाट ऑल डू यू इंपोर्ट? Weapons, LNG maybe, gas we have started, and largely technology. तो Microsoft का when you buy this, Anthropic से when you buy the subscription, और Claude से when you मतलब ChatGPT से when you buy the subscription, Apple का product when you buy, that all leads to दैट्स व्हाई दे कॉल्ड अबाउट, अगर वो बोलते ना कि स्वदेशी बाय करो, बाय इन मेड इन इंडिया, दे आर एसेंशियली सेइंग current account deficit we want positive. So made in India is not a is a slogan, it's a chapter born out of your economics class, which is current account is deficit. अभी मुझे कैपिटल अकाउंट का बताइए whether it is positive or negative, and then we'll also discuss. Just search हाँ US India current capital account, whether it is surplus or just ensure that the answer is correct, you know, because I know the topic but पता लगा गलत ही पढ़ा के I should be able to convince you. ज्यादा पढ़ लेने पे वो भी होता है आपका गलत। हाँ बोलिए। यूएस इंडिया कैपिटल अकाउंट सरप्लस और डेफिसिट, जस्ट आस्क दिस क्वेश्चन टू योर जेमिनी। ये उड़ गया जरा सा फिर, यानी दिखाइए मुझे। While India historically runs a capital account surplus to finance its structural current account deficit, समझे आप? तो यूजुअली दोनों सर डेफिसिट नहीं होता. So what it says is the US operates a capital account surplus when combining the traditional capital account with its massive to offset its current account deficit. So there is a deficit on the, while India historically runs a capital account surplus to finance its structural current account deficit. But is this with regards to the US? In general, it is with regards to a country. मेटा क्यों आ गया? चलिए I'll check on my phone. ये थोड़ा आपको क्लैरिफाई कर देता हूँ. यूएस इंडिया करंट अकाउंट सरप्लस, बस इतना चेक कीजिए, आपको आंसर है. यूएसए इंडिया करंट अकाउंट सरप्लस और डेफिसिट. हाँ वही तो बोला. सी यूएस करेंटली वही है, एंड दैट इज व्हाई ट्रम्प कीप्स कंप्लेनिंग. The US consistently operates a current account deficit driven by importing more goods than it exports. That is why Trump is not happy, and that is why he is imposing all the tariffs. ज़्यादा import करता है, and we were putting higher tariffs on them, making their entry levels difficult. ठीक है. So with US we have a current account surplus, and if it comes to the capital account देखिए जरा. Capital account is more on the machinery and the patent side of it, non-financial assets, non-patents, land, capital grants. उसमें देखिए तो हाँ करेक्ट. सो यूएस इंडिया कैपिटल अकाउंट सरप्लस और डेफिसिट पूछ लीजिए, सर्च कीजिए क्यों बैठे हो. नहीं आपको नहीं पूछ. important question because I need to see if there are any divergent views also. So the US consistently runs a US India, while India also maintains a capital account surplus because both nations import more goods and services than they export. तो ये है, देखिए कैपिटल अकाउंट में क्या है, इट इज इम्पोर्टेंट. सो हियर देर आर ऑल्सो इनफ्लोज वाया एफपीआईज, है ना, सॉरी वाया एफडीआई. So there is FDI fund flow also, non-financial assets है, non-produced. So you are getting money through in capital accounts. You are getting money through. What are the sources in for flow? This is external borrowings are captured here, and FPIs, when they sell, it leads to a current capital account deficit, and so FDI is plus, FPI is minus. चलिए इसमें थोड़ा सा आई थिंक आई मेक अ बेटर. अभी जैसे देखिएगा तो इंडिया रिकॉर्डेड अ करंट अकाउंट सरप्लस ऑफ 7.1 बिलियन इन द फाइनेंशियल फाइनल क्वार्टर ऑफ द 2026 फाइनेंशियल ईयर, नायरिंग फ्रॉम द सरप्लस ऑफ 13.7 बिलियन. दिस इज ऑन अ ट्रेडिंग इकोनॉमिक्स विच इज इंपॉर्टेंट. सो इस पर थोड़ा सा हम लोग बना देंगे आई थिंक. एंड इंडिया कैपिटल अकाउंट सरप्लस. सो कैपिटल अकाउंट सरप्लस और डेफिसिट वॉज रिपोर्टेड टू बी minus 161,492 INR million in 2026. So India is running a capital account deficit as per the ISI markets को डेटा है, CIC डेटा है, एंड दैट विल. ठीक है, तो इस पे बैलेंस ऑफ पेमेंट, India's current account surplus. So India runs a current account surplus because we are exporting more, importing less. But as far as capital account है तो वहाँ डेफिसिट रन कर रहा है. दैट इज व्हाट इट लुक्स लाइक. सो यूएसए, इंडिया. थोड़ा सा मुझे ना सही डेटा नहीं मिल रहा. आप लोग देखो तो मोबाइल लैपटॉप खोल के बैठो आप लोग. So India is running a positive CAD, which is about $25 billion, which is about 0.6% of the GDP for the full fiscal years. And what are the reasons for running this surplus? One is the mercantile trade, services surplus. So we export from, I say, Wipro and TCS, and remittances also are considered here. Remittances. So जो Gulf से remittance आ रहा है, US से आ रहा है, that forms part of the current account. That is what they are trying to impact. कि इनका करंट अकाउंट जो सरप्लस है ना वो कम हो जाए. सो दैट इज बाय इम्पैक्टिंग द हाई. दिस इज व्हाट आई वाज लुकिंग फॉर, कि वेयर द रेमिटेंस इज फिट्स. सो रेमिटेंस इज एन इंपॉर्टेंट कंपोनेंट. देन मर्केंडाइज एक्सपोर्ट, जो भी आप गुड्स यू आर एक्सपोर्टिंग, एंड देन थर्ड इज services export. So all of this put together for all the IT companies, if you put together, so here they are trying to impact by putting H1B under check. This they are trying to impact by putting tariffs, and this they are remittances from USA by H1B, and remittances from Gulf by destabilizing the Gulf region. So many people ran away from Iraq and Syria where they were making money. अब तो जहाँ भी पैसा कमाते हैं वहाँ से भगा दोगे तो naturally they will get impacted. ठीक है. And capital accounts is non-produced, non-financial assets, the patents, land, capital, whatever you import, the machineries and all, that is essentially the capital account deficit और surplus, है ना. अब मुझे बताइए कि कैपिटल अकाउंट डेफिसिट या सरप्लस है, इसका मुझे नंबर चाहिए. इंडिया कैपिटल अकाउंट डेफिसिट और सरप्लस. I think we are running a deficit to my understanding, but I just need the number. It's a negative number. So we are importing more machineries and all, है ना, and plus lot of money has gone out via FPI. FDI less money has come in, FDI more money has come in. So it's all a balance of payment which is on the deficit side of it. ठीक है. So this is more on the financial outflows exceed inflows. This is on the financial side of it. It says the capital account deficit occurs when a country's financial outflows exceed its inflows. Simply put, more money is leaving the nation through foreign investments, loans, and asset purchases than is coming in from overseas investments. So this is all inflow of money via investments. ये देख लीजिए, loans, है ना, asset purchases, via this more money is out going out. So we have a CAD of capital account deficit of roughly about, which is can you give me the number, about $59.6 billion, which is a big number. 25 billion ka we are surplus here by about $25 billion, and we have a deficit of about 5960 odd USD billion. समझ गए आप? ठीक. Now how does it impact your currency gets impacted? So high CAD, which is this one, this we are trying to maintain at 3%. Our target here, I don't recall the target here. This is our target, but sometimes we breach, we get to 3.9, sometimes we 4%. You know? So high CAD will lead to currency weakness. So you've seen that we have breached 3%, and you've seen the currency has dipped, lost its value from 84 rupees to 96 rupees. Also, it has gone. It is because of the CAD deficit. The currency weakens, imports become costlier, the credit rating goes down, and then you have to, when you borrow, you have to borrow at a higher rate, and this will impact again this one. It's a whole cycle. So if that is what the geopolitical forces are trying to do. They're trying to impact the CAD. CAD, how will you do that? Ban their exports. H1B money that comes via any remittance from Gulf or H1B, impact that. Naturally, your CAD drops, currency weakens, the import cost goes up, the credit rating goes down, and it's a vicious cycle, then leads to higher CAD. That's how you can weaken any country. That's what this geopolitical fight is not about, the tariff, etc. This is about weakening economies in countries. That is why it is essential that we understand. ये एक major concern है for any foreign affairs minister, not for RBI only, this is a foreign affairs minister. So, and for any agency, for any government agency, this is a major. So what are the two sides of the coin? Globalization, the best part is money comes in, best global allocation of resources, developing economies get integrated, not necessarily. Consumers benefit from global competition and greater access. So it's mostly flow of resources, okay, technology, competition, and then culture. But no one wants to give you this. For example, Fable 5 is banned in India. For all emerging economies, they have banned Fable. Even for resident Indians, it is banned. So it is all in the books. The globalization leads to this, but they are not allowing, which is absolutely bad. What are some of the negatives? Whichever, like when we opened the gates in the globalization, China, all Chinese products came inside, and it killed a lot of Indian companies which were selling. So survival of the fittest. It's a contagion risk, so it spreads. A crisis in one region spreads to the other. Asian financial crisis is a good example. 2008 financial crisis is a good example. Started in America, spread to all over the world. Asian financial crisis started in Malaysia and spread to whole of the world. India somehow got saved. Developed nations often negotiate trade terms to their own advantage, happening now, and cultural erosion. So that also is a possibility. So, these are topics. So, why analysts study economy? To track the economic signals. What all will you study? The GDP growth, monetary, fiscal policy, interest rates, inflation, public expenditure, and fiscal deficit. You'll read the direction of it. So which side the economy is headed? Is it shrinking? And whether expansionary or contraction. Whether expansionary policy needs to be followed, or a contraction policies. What's the right word for it? Contractionary policies need to be followed, and then apply to the industry. So translate the macro trajectory into specific industry and company being analyzed. Okay, so how is it important for a fundamental analyst? Start tracking this. You will find on TradingView economic signals, or rather investing.com economic signals. Then see what the policymakers, the government, and the RBI. So tracking RBI and Fed becomes very, very important. And then you will translate this to understand the impact of macroeconomics on industry and the company. So this is how it is important for a what you call is these guys, for fundamental analysis. What are three types of economic trends? Cyclical, तो आपको पता है, which lasts for 2 to 6 years. Cyclicity is there. Then there is a seasonal trend. So seasonality is there because of monsoons, for example. There is an annual cycle. It's a cyclical trend in the segment, like a cement cycle, a commodity cycle. This is because of maybe the festive season, maybe because of the monsoons. And secular trend is which impacts everyone. It impacts all economies. It impacts the goods and services sector. It impacts. It could be because of certain technology culture. It is a larger trend. So you have to understand whether it is a seasonal trend. It impacts 1 or 2 quarters maximum. For example, rainy season impacts at max quarter and few part of the other quarter. So it's not full 2 quarters, maybe 4 months. So Q3, 1 quarter and then another month from the another quarter. Cyclical trend is large, is slightly bigger, and it affects how people consume goods and services. So that's a trend here. For example, Olas and Ubers and Zomatos. So I think that's a secular trend. ऑटोमोबाइल हो जाएगा, बट उसमें जैसे अब ईवी है, एनर्जी है, so that is a secular trend. That technology will last for 7-10 years before it gets outdated. So mostly it's a technology thing. यहाँ पर फैशन आउट ऑफ फैशन होता रहता है. For example, at one point in time, Fab India was the kind of the dress code you will have, or the dressing. It was the in thing. Then all of a sudden, Fab India died. Then no one was wearing kurtas, and all of a sudden, then Fab India. So it's a trend, that cycle. People start using old phones. People start using the hairstyle, the kind of the outfit you wear. 70s में वापस आते हैं. So it's a cyclical trend. And then commodities में आप देखोगे तो commodities में there is a cycle. Cement consumption is a cycle, mostly related to the consumption pattern, which will last for a few years and then will wane off. And this is mostly because of, I think, largely because of technology, culture and demography. But ये जो है, this is largely due to the consumption pattern. Consumption patterns change, style of wearing, style of what you consume. होता है कि Chinese food becomes the in thing, then people start consuming Chinese things, and you get bored out of it. So it's about consumption, it's about technology, and this is about Q1 or Q2. This is mostly about the monsoons or the weather or religious thing. This is religious here, consumption here, and this is technology thing. So economic cycle क्या क्या है? You got recovery, you got expansion, you got slowdown, and you got recovery. This is early recovery here. Expansion में क्या होगा? Prices, rising income, low rates, high confidence, high demand, and production and employment. This is expansion right here. Low rates, remember this is very important. Slowdown में the rates are already very high. They discourage consumption. So at this point in time, your interest rate is already very, very high. Recession में there will be layoffs happening. Rates will come down. So this is a recession. Interest rate is at the rock bottom. Best time to buy or accumulate any property. Recovery, the interest rate. So link it to the interest rates. At this stage, expansion and boom में the interest rate is low and then rising. Slowdown में your interest rates are already at the peak. Recession में it is at the bottom, and recovering में the interest rate starts rising. Link it to the RBI behavior, then I think that way it is easier to know. इधर चला गया. एक दो स्लाइड्स और हैं. कितना लंबा पीपीटी बना दिया, खत्म ही नहीं हुआ. सैटरडे संडे का पिज्जा का बदला ले लिया आपने तो पूरा. ठीक है. So this is done. Commodity cycle देख लीजिए. This is what I was talking about. This will last for 2 to 6 years, sometimes more also. So commodity cycle में the prices will shoot up. The suppliers will expand their capacity. There is oversupply which will happen, right? So there is too much of supply. Then the prices will fall. The high cost producers will exit, and the supply will shrink. So this will go on. Prices rise, too many suppliers get in. This is the supply side, which you've already studied in your economics, as to how the supply shifts and why the supply reduces. A parallel shift. that you have studied already. So prices rise, more suppliers enter, oversupply happens, then prices fall, then some people will exit and the supply will fall. Okay. And what is an inventory cycle? So these are short-term cycles within a commodity cycle driven by inventory adjustments. So high inventory is there, then customers cut their procurements, then supplier inventory piles up and the prices fall. Okay. And then demand improves, low inventory forces urgent procurement price. So this happens largely in seasonality, maybe festive season, or towards the end of the end of some, when some discounts are given, some discounts. For example, December end you get a lot of discounts, so people buy a lot of vehicles. October to December is a buying phase. That is when the inventory cycle shoots up, and then from January to Feb the inventory falls, and possibly the March also the inventory falls. This is a cycle that you follow. So these are short-term inventory cycles within a commodity cycle and largely driven by inventory adjustment. So when the commodity cycle is there, you will have inventory cycles moving up and down. So this is good. So inventory cycle is related to your commodity cycle. Seasonal trends, where to find the data? बताइए कहाँ मिलेगा seasonal trends? पहले ये देख लेते हैं. I think the last slide. There are government sites, there are regulatory websites, there are economic research reports, and then there is economic survey. So you have official stats and releases, you have SEBI, RBI, Ministry of Finance, you have published analysis from research houses, and then economic surveys are there. Very, very important. This comes from Government of India. Very, very important, the economic surveys. Seasonal trends, these are highly predictable fluctuations. So largely it's linked to our culture here. And for example, it's an agriculture GDP contribution peaks around harvest. Income varies quarter to quarter with the sowing harvest. So this time, when it is a harvesting time, the income levels of farmers goes up, and they have more purchasing power, they have more buying power, and hence they buy. So this seasonal trend leads to into buying behavior. और ये agricultural season है, इसलिए I think this is a very nice example here. So how analysts adjust seasonally adjusted growth rate? You'll have to check. Statistically remove seasonal fluctuations. This is known as normalization of EPS that I was talking about. When you remove the seasonal factor, then this is, or any factor, not just of EPS but maybe of sales. So you will have to remove the seasonality factor as a research, because this is a research analyst book and an exam. So when there are too much fluctuations, and seasons will see fluctuations, so you'll have to remove the seasonality. How can you do that? Statistically you can remove it, or you can look at, compare the same period across years to year to neutralize seasonality. So you can look at YOY growth period across the same period. So, or you can simply take an average of Q1 plus Q2 plus Q3 plus Q4. Okay, that is one. You take an average of the numbers, or you can look at YOY growth, and it compares the same period across years to neutralize seasonality. So YOY you're looking at. So YOY has all averages considered. So it has all growth of all the 4 quarters. So it considers all the numbers of all the quarters, and you are comparing not quarter on quarter, but you are comparing YOY. That takes care of that average. Anything which averages out, and that is simple, is first add and divide by 4, or look at YOY, or somehow statistically remove the seasonality impact. We will learn in one of the assignments how to remove the seasonality impact. Which sectors would be, and that's why we have done the seasonality test with Jaydev. Jaydev has studied whether seasonality has an impact. Yes, in this case, it's a reverse. So when the monsoon is not there, the mining sector reports better EPS. It's a seasonality impact. Then we will learn how to do the seasonality, de-seasonality, how to remove the seasonality. That's the whole idea of giving him, because it is tied up to this chapter. That's why Jaydev is doing. समझे आप? अरे क्या बनाया, खत्म ही नहीं हो रहा है. ठीक है. So what is micro versus macro? Individual firm versus firm behavior. What are some of the variables? Income, savings, and inflation. These are all related. In jobs, FDI and FPI are related terminologies, but one is direct investment, controls the board, controls the management. FPI does not control. It's a passive investment sitting in some company, ठीक है. Fiscal and monetary policy you have studied and trade globalization you have studied, जिसमें कि आपने CAD और capital account deficit और current account deficit भी पढ़ा. The two levers government has is one is through fiscal policy, the second is through central bank monetary policy. There are three trends. One is secular in nature, which is larger period, biggest period. Then it is cyclical between 2 to 6 years, and then you have seasonal, which is annual movement once in a year. Cyclical is last for 2 to 6 years. It's like a capex cycle, investment cycle, cement cycle, commodity cycle, and secular is largely brought by the technology part of it, which changes your consumption behavior. Why it does it matter? Because when you read the macro signals, it helps you to forecast industry and company around. So it helps you understanding the seasonality part of it and which cycle of the economy you are in, because आपका growth forecast थोड़ा lower होगा if the economy is going down, so growth forecast will be lower. And if there is a seasonality impact when you are doing quarter on quarter financial modeling, this will impact your financial modeling. So हम when we do financial modeling using AI, प्लॉट से जब करेंगे तो आप उसमें सीजनलिटी इम्पैक्ट भी, सो ईच ऑफ यू विल पिक अप वन सेक्टर एंड देन इंसर्ट दी सीजनैलिटी फ्रॉम अ रियल लाइफ, और फिर एज एन एनालिस्ट यू विल रिमूव द सीजनैलिटी. दोनों काम आप ही करो. सो ठीक है. एंड वेयर टू फाइंड दिस, ऑल द गवर्नमेंट रेगुलेटर साइड, ये आपको पता होना चाहिए. दिस इज, I told you that in the interview they will ask you, do you know how to download this, do you know how to statistics का डेटा कहाँ से आएगा, कौन सा डेटा कहाँ से आएगा, ये आपके दिमाग में बिल्कुल the page should be, you should know the page. So this is the last page I think. So test yourself. So tonight just attempt chapter 5 and I think that will help you in understanding. ठीक है. We'll stop here. Thank you and good night and God bless you all. एक और भी है चैप्टर. इसके पास एक अच्छा बहाना है सर, क्लाउड का लिमिट हो गया. चलिए विल स्टॉप इट नाउ. ठीक है.